Welcome back, everyone. The Federal Ministry of Education has clarified that the ministry has not stopped students who are not up to 18 years old from writing the West Africa Senior School Certificate Examination and the National Examinations Council exams. About a week and a half, the federal government reportedly announced that underage candidates will no longer be allowed to sit for secondary school leaving examinations conducted by the West African Examinations Council and the National Examinations Council, NECO. But in a swift reaction, the Minister of State for Education, Dr. Sununu, made the clarification in Abuja on Friday. Dr. Sununu said that the public misconception and misinterpretation of what was said by the Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, was highly disappointing. So tonight, let's hear directly from Dr. Tanko Sununu on what exactly the federal government is saying as government seeks to standardize educational processes and ensure students are adequately prepared for higher education. Honorable Minister, good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for coming on Politics Tonight.
Thank you for having me. Well, first of all, let me thank you for giving us this rare opportunity to be at TVC to shed more light on the happenings in education under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. But before I go, I want to make certain clarification too. First and foremost, we have not produce any new national policy of education yet. Okay. Two, we have developed education roadmap 2023 to 2027, which is a 4-year work plan that takes into cognizance the provision of the constitutions which places education under the concurrent list. Also put a lot of consideration on the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, so also took into cognizance the national policy on education and also the briefing from the ministry staffs and its agencies and our development partners and major stakeholders in education. And in doing that, we came up with a program we call DOT Project, which we'll also discuss. Now, on the issue of the WAEC NECO examination age limits, the whole issue started when we are having a major stakeholders meeting of JAM, Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, which is the body saddled with responsibility for providing admission spaces to our candidates who want to pursue and access their higher education in Nigeria. And then as at that time, policies were voted, we went for a line-by-line reading so as to agree and adopt the modalities that would be used for the 2024-2025 academic session. And it is at that meeting that in the opening remarks of the Honorable Minister of Education, he made mention of the fact that henceforth, no admission will be granted to anybody who is below the age of 18 years. And at that meeting, there was a lot of uproar, and the major stakeholders at that meeting insisted that already candidates have registered on the conditions that they are going to write, so it wouldn't be proper to shift the goal post at the middle of the game. And therefore, we granted, the meeting agreed that 2024-2025 academic session should go as was advertised. And then Minister also granted another interview. And this is also not a new policy. It's derived from our previous national policy of education. If you look at the 2013 National Policy of Education, and also the 6334 system, you will see that the age will be 18. It's a message that a child will have a pre-primary education at the age of 2 to 5 years, where he will have a basic foundation on the early childhood education, care, and development, so that it can serve as a smooth transition from home to school environment. And then from there, at the age of 6, He'll be enrolled in primary schools where he will undergo his basic education that will tell him staying in primary school for another 6 years and then proceeding to his basic education for another 3 years, making it 9 years. And then finally, he will go for his secondary school education for another 3 years. Now, when you add 6 plus 6, that will give you 18 years. And at that 18 years, a child is expected to be physically matured, cognitively matured, and will have a lot of ability to take care and be responsible for himself and also monitor his environment, and will have the addition. So when that issue is discussed, we have a discussion at the Federal House of Representatives at the instant of the Mr. Speaker in his own proactive approach to interventions. And we have agreed that this is a policy that has been but there is also a need to subject it to another further evaluation and discussion. And then we agree that further engagement will be continued, and the matter will also be addressed during the National Council on Education that is coming in September. So I won't say that it's a work in progress. But however, if you look at the age of writing examination, categorically speaking, there is no limit of age that was mentioned as at today, which I know. So to say simply is that the policy...
All right.
Yes.
I want us to be very clear on two major issues you've raised. You've talked about Education Roadmap 2027. I would like to expatiate on that. Is that Nigeria moving from the 6333 education system?
No, it's not moving from the 6334 system of education. That is just a program, a focus, a directives. Because if you look at the 8-point agenda of Mr. President and under priority focus on education, social welfare, you find that there are a lot of emphasis. The President emphasized on the issue of out-of-school children. He emphasized on the issue on the access of higher education. Mr. President also emphasized on the issue of quality of education. Mr. President also emphasized on the issue of need of skills. Mr. President emphasized on the need of infrastructural rehabilitation and revival. And then further, how we can expand the frontier of knowledge in the country. So in achieving of that, we just came up with what is a working document that will guide us in achieving the mandate of Mr. President as he promised Nigerians during the campaign, and also how he continued to emphasize and remind Nigerians what he is up to as far as education. So that is just a working document, and that's why initially I said it's not a new policy on education. So
another clarification I would like you... Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, and what we did was to see in the next 4 years, how can we put together what we intend to achieve and that 4 years, and how do we work together right from the local government to the federal government level to see how we can collaborate with each other and meet up with demand and result that is expected by Mr. President. And for every Nigerian to be happy that we have really received the dividends of democracy by having a qualitative education that guarantee job placement, and then for our candidate also be employer of service on their own and be able to compete internationally and globally. So that's this thing. And we went ahead to break it into a 1-year work plan. So we have evaluated what we have done in the last 1 year. And earlier in your news edition, I've said that we have succeeded in returning about 4 million Nigeria children that are out of school but of this. And then we further went to say, okay, how can we give it an acronym that we can be strictly guided? And we also came with DOT project that Mr. President granted approval. The D for the DOTs stand for data repository. Everybody will agree as it is as at now in Nigeria, data is a serious issue. And we needed data, especially in education, for so many purposes. Planning, monitoring and evaluation, interventions, resources allocation, and what have you. And that data about our student number, where they are, their performances is lacking. Infrastructural data is also lacking. What are the state of our institution, primary school, public and private? And also, what are the status of our teachers, where they are and how they are, these are lacking. So it becomes a serious goal, and very soon enumeration to generate that strong data that will address the issue of confusion and conflicting figures here and there will give us a data that we can solely depend on. And the O is the out-of-school children. Mr. President is so worried. It is a major thematic area in the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, addressing the issue of out-of-school children, which is a menace and can be described aptly as a time bomb. And we have seen in the just concluded national protest how the phenomenon of out-of-school children dominate the field of the protest. And because of a lot of them lack critical thinking, public properties that is aimed at improving their services, welfare, have been destroyed by those out-of-school children and many others. So this is a serious issue. So Mr. President is so worried that we have to do work to ensure that we address those circumstances. And the T for the dot stand for the teacher welfare, teacher capacity building, training and retraining, while the S stand for skills, upskilling, reskilling, and also trying to see how we can develop national policy guidelines on labor so that we'll be able to guide our informal sector, that we can harness from them the relevant skills that we are needed for our students that are out of school so they can be properly trained in terms of their vocational education as we move forward. So this is that's the clarification.
All right, Honorable. So tonight, so we do not have any misunderstanding or misconception. You have said tonight that no admission will be granted to students who are not yet, candidates who are not yet 18 years. So does this mean that candidates who are not yet 18 can write NECO, WAEC, but cannot write JAM? Is that it?
What I said is, candidates who are less than 18 will write all the examinations. But for admission, it's a work in progress. And then this is not only, so many countries put in an age limitation in terms of admission. Yes, understandably in the United States, at the age of 17, they will be given admission, 18 usually. And in Canada and many other countries like that. But still in those countries, if you are below the age of 16, so below the age of 18, there are some certain conditions that you must fulfill. First of all, you must provide the provisions that you are mature enough to take care of yourself and their basic needs in the institutions. So also, the age on its own is also for you, if you are an expatriate going to those countries to study, will also be used in terms of granting you education visa. But we are not saying that we have closed our distance. The ministry is now looking at that possibility because a lot of issues have been raised. So many examples cited. A lot of us also have gone below the age of 16 because the provision of the National Council of National Policy on Education was overlooked. And we have seen it have succeeded in some areas. So the ministry is now further going to develop a criteria which will identify such gifted and talented candidates that will be given the opportunity to continue with their tertiary level of education, university admission, even below the age of 18. And this is also another work in progress. So as of today, anybody that wrote JAM and succeeded in securing of admission at age below the 18 is still going to get admission this year. And then further development, as I said, mentioned, that will be based on the consultation we are right now holding with National Assembly, and that will also follow suit during the National Council of Education will now determine and shape the country's direction in terms of the age limit for admission into our universities.
Still do not understand what you mean by work in progress. Now, let's say, for instance, a child writes an examination at 16 years. Before 18, what should they be doing? Are you introducing vocational studies, A-level? You would agree with me that they must be doing something.
This is what I said now. I didn't say what I mean by work in progress is that we are still going to review that policy. to see what we are going to do. And then in terms of skilling also that you mentioned, yes, we are, as at today, there is no area that we are prioritizing as Federal Ministry of Education than skill and skilling, reskilling and upskilling, both informal and informal sector. So we are also looking at the possibility of creating areas, not only when you have finished your school, no, even right at the time you are in school. If you look at the national policy on education, it says at basic level of education, you should be introduced into the basic, in the basic education, you should also introduce a vocational education so that average child will learn a craft or trade that he thinks he wants to specialize on. Because a lot of students may not wish to proceed for their secondary school level of education, but at least they have their basic education, which they can be used as a guide to further develop the skill they have learned while in schools. And even for those who want to proceed for their secondary school education, even at the time they are in their tertiary level of education, will still use that skills during vacational periods and holidays to see how they can also enhance their earning so that they can support their education or even go ahead for those who have specialized excellently well to support their parents. So nobody will be left without doing anything. We are all cognizant that an idle mind is a double workshop. And that is why the reason why we are also seriously working to return children off the street back to school, so that from the street back to school, so that we can provide a very good atmosphere for them to think and be useful to themselves and also to the nation.
So, Honorable, so what crisis or challenge is government trying to address with this policy?
Which policy, at least?
What did you say?
I didn't understand your question.
So, you know, this current education system is 934, called Universal Basic Education. I mean, if you go back to the 654 and the 6334, which metamorphosed into this 934 education system, they were all meant to address certain compelling demands. For some, I mean, some might just say it's all about nomenclature because the standard of our education is still falling every day. So what I'm saying is you've addressed the conception or the insinuation whether or not government is trying to restrain gifted and talented child. So I'm asking, are gifted and talented children be punished for being talented? So I'm asking, what crisis is government aiming to address with this?
Well, there are a lot of issues we wanted to address in the system of education. You see, the problem with the system of education in Nigeria is poor implementation of the system we have. For example, if you look at the basic education, you find that there are a lot of national policy on education. There are a lot of areas that were left behind. Take, for instance, early childhood care development education. It's engraved in the national policy of education. But as of today, it's not given much priority, except for now that we are working hard to ensure that we improve on training of teachers that will take and handle that level of education. And it's entirely left to the private sector, while the national policy of education said it should be incorporated even in public school, so that at the level of pre-secondary primary school, we should have level of that education so that we can have a smooth transition. That is overlooked. If you look at the second primary school of education also, you find that one of the major challenges, despite the fact that it develops subject and criteria, subject to be taught, you find that our curriculum remains obsolete. In fact, in the last 14 years, there was no curriculum review, except for now that we have completed the review of our curriculum and will be presented to the National Council on Education for adaptation and implementation with immediate effect, so that we can have the curriculum that will determine our current needs based on our assessment of the current situations. So that is also our decision. If you move to the basic education, you find that I've mentioned the issue of skilling. The basic education component of it has also been neglected. If I still take you back, there are also certain areas that are missing. The first 3 years of education in primary school is supposed to be taught by the language of immediate environment, which should have been the major language of communication in teaching at that level to facilitate learning and then to facilitate our cohesion. For example, in an Igbo land, at the first 3 years of learning should be taught in Igbo language, so also in Hausa and Hausa land, Yoruba and other where you have different language. The language that is being spoken by the majority of people in that environment should be the language of communication. While and then education at that level, English, should be taught as subject. From 4 years, class 4 and above, the medium of communication now will be in English, gradually introducing it up to this. And then you also go and introduce the language of our neighboring countries. And that's why at that level you introduce French. All this is saying that we want to improve on local cohesion and also a better understanding with our environment. And you also said that for our national cohesion, it also said that 4 years and above, class 4 and above, you should also introduce one of the major languages of Nigeria. Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. At least a child should pick one as a subject. So, and I mentioned the issue of skills. Skills has been bastardized and have not been, despite the provision in the national policy on education, it has been completely overlooked. Thanks to Mr. President for going further to even amend the National NECO Act so that it can also incorporate skills. So that what is the essence of not introducing skill? That's why we have a lot of dropout who doesn't have any subject, any skill that they can earn money from. So if we widen our scope in terms of vocational education, we get youths who are having their basic education with a level of literacy, numeracy rate in their brain, they can be able to think critically and develop themselves and go further to widen their skills. So even at national, if you go to the level of tertiary institution, a lot of things also went wrong. Tertiary level of education should expose us to the highest level of education. And most especially in university system, it should be a research-based so that universities can widen their scope, and then research can be also a major source of grant that some university can listen. And we are also majorly...
Honorable, talking about literacy rates. Let me come in here. Talking about literacy rates. Yesterday was International Literacy Day. That's a day dedicated to promoting the importance of literacy as a tool for empowering individuals and building more inclusive societies. So how did Nigeria celebrate this year's theme?
Well, the Literacy Day is taken so serious in Nigeria, and most especially at the Federal Ministry of Education. Because the day, the 9th September was a weekend, 8th September was on weekend. So we have to do our press conference on Friday, and thanks to TVC, you were there well represented, and you have adequately reported the engagement we have with the press. We try to highlight what are the current status and what are the challenges in terms of our literacy rate, and what we are doing under Mr. President's leadership to address those challenges. And what we say usually definitely is the fact that while people are listening, there are improvement in terms of literacy rate, with some states in Nigeria even reaching to the international standard of literacy rate. Because once you have a literacy rate of about 90% and above, in places like Imo State and many other states in the southern part, that's a good addition. While it is also very, very low in the northern part of the country, with some states having less than around 30 to 35% as their literacy rate. That is also, it shows that there is skewing. If you look at also in terms of male-female distribution, you find that the girl child is also at disadvantage. But let me also say that the campaign for girl child admission, education, is succeeding. During this controversy on age of admission at tertiary institution, we have a reason to call for data from 2020 to 2024 of the candidate that attempted our examinations, and we disaggregated that into male and female. It is surprising to say that the female category in all the level of education and in all level of examination is currently leading, with female participating in our examination almost around the range of 55 to 65% as against the 40 to 45% for the male child. So these are also recent findings, and that's why we want data so that we can know while we are emphasizing on girl-child education, because we need to liberate her, educate a girl child, you are educating the nation. We must also be very, very sensitive to the fact that we shouldn't allow the male child to also suffer some disadvantage, so that we can combine. But luckily for us, all the intervention for a girl child like Ada try to incorporate everybody, most especially because of the mandate of Mr. President in having inclusivity in education. So we're carrying everybody along.
All right. I want us to talk about ASUU because the union issued a 21-day strike notice to the federal government on August 19. So what is the guarantee that Nigerian students will not sit at home again? What's the federal government saying to ASUU to avert another strike?
Well, to ASUU, on behalf of the Federal Minister of Education, I must say thank you to ASUU, and also thank you to all the associations under the Federal Ministry of Education, because it's on record. For almost a very long time, for the first time, we had at least 1 year strike-free. And also, we must also know that going back to the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, sustainable academic calendar is one of the thematic areas that we are. And then when we came, we have realized that, and we begin to have a way we can develop a mutual trust between us, and not only ASUU, but all the associations under the Federal Ministry of Education. And we have been into consultation and discussing. ASUU gave an ultimatum, and ultimatum on the declaration of trade dispute. What means this in labor? When you declare a trade dispute, within that period of time you are expecting the government to do something tangible, so that when you take it to the general public, there may not be need for the general members of those associations to see the need to declare a strike. Issues that have been raised by ASUU, a lot are also been addressed. For example, one of the major issues is the constitution of the governing council of our tertiary institution, and this has been done by Mr. President.
Well,
we have already integrated those councils. They have gone.
All right, but when you say some of these demands are being addressed, please be specific, because according
we
to the
have addressed some.
He mentioned some of the outstanding issues, to include emergency revitalization fund of public universities, payment of outstanding earned academic allowances, release of without salaries, promotion arrears, and third-party deduction of ASUU members. And all of these are reappearing issues. Yes, every government has had its fair share of ASUU strike. It does not mean this administration must have a stake in that. So the committee will meet on Wednesday, just as report says. So what are the gray areas the committee is set to resolve?
You see, those are some of the gray areas that this committee has set to resolve are the issue of the end academic allowances. And what we needed now is we have agreed with an ASUU on what to do. And we have agreed at that time we are progressing, that our committee is working. So there are some assignments given to ASUU, and there are assignments that are given with the ministry. And as soon, I'm sure, either by tomorrow, we should be able to reconcile those additions and then approach the finance for those issues. And we have agreed. We have addressed the media after our first and second meeting with ASUU. And both of us and ASUU agree that we are progressing. But a lot needs to be done. And we have thanked ASUU for showing a very good understanding. And for us, we see unions under the Federal Ministry of Education as partners. And we are ready to sit down together, address things holistically, so that strike can be a thing of the past. In fact, nobody, not even ASUU, will want strike. And we are working hard to make sure that whatever is inevitable to calls for strike is addressed, so that there won't be strike. And we are working seriously. And all of us are happy with the progress we are making. Very soon we'll call for another meeting to assess where we are and where we have gone, just as we did about 2 days on Friday.
So what about the matter of IPPIS? Because there was an announcement that the Federal Executive Council has directed that the university system be removed from the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System platform. But I see that this is still one of the major issues ASUU intends to go on strike. I've spoken to members of ASUU, and they say this looks intentional on the part of government. So who is not doing his or her job?
You see, it's not that who is not doing his job. You know, sometimes you can have some systemic delay. And when we start down with ASUU, we look at those systemic delay. And we have agreed that it shouldn't be decent because Mr. President directed that the finance should do that with immediate effect through the fact that's also resolved on that. And then we also have another directive through the fact that that should be done. And already we have constituted a committee that is seriously working. And in the next, trying to look at the gray areas so that what made ASUU or what made tertiary institution to move into IPPIS are addressed before they move to another platform that will be used to pay them. And it's not only the IPPIS alone. The issue of appointment and hiring and firing initially was completely withdrawn from tertiary institutions of learning management. But now it has completely been restored. No institution needs to resort to the Office of the Health Civil Service of the Federation for waiver before it can grant or replace those teachers that they have left to their institution. So there are a lot of progress, and that's why that mutual trust that is being sustained through a mutual understanding under the directive of Mr. President, we have to sustain it. And we are doing what we've done with all faithfulness, not to in any way try to underplay anybody. We are frank in our discussion because we agree they are our good partners. If you look at the ASUU, SANU, or NASU as enemies of progress in institutions or in the educational sector, that is going to be a very wrong decision, and it will mar your progress, and it will not allow you to have a conducive atmosphere that will foster a very good fertilizing ground for you to reach an amicable understanding to resolve issues. And that's why we are seeing them as partners in progress, and we are working in harmony to ensure that things are done right.
All right, Honorable Minister, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will continue with this conversation. Please stay with us, everyone. Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for joining or staying with us on the program tonight. Tonight, we're focused on matters of education as government seeks to standardize educational processes. And I've been speaking with Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu, Minister of State for Education. Honorable Minister, thanks a lot for staying with us on the program. Let's delve into the student loan scheme. I mean, the latest development on that is the significant injection of funds into the scheme. And now Fund has acknowledged receipts of 50 billion naira from EFCC. So in total, now Fund has gotten 120 billion naira so far, with 218,000 applications so far. Now, this is Mr. President's flagship project in the education sector. What is the status of the policy, and what more do you think Nigerians need to know about this scheme?
Well, Nigeria needs to know that Mr. President has a good heart, and he wants access to education by every child of Nigeria. And quoting Mr. President rightly, he said, the single tool you can use to eradicate poverty is education. And lack of means should not be a reason whereby a child will not pursue his tertiary level of education. And it has come to be a reality. People, I want also to understand that is also another way of indirect funding of our education. We have a situation prior to now that it takes over 2 to 3 months before students can finish or complete their payment of school fees. Some may even pay it at the time they are about to be going for exams. While they are preparing for their exam, they are also thinking of how to get money to pay for their school fees. But Mr. President came up with this policy and is working a lot to ensure that there is that confidence for a student to face his study without running about his school fees. And then it has also allowed many universities as of today to plan their project because the money is coming in bulk as an institutional part of the loans that is being accessed by the student. For the student, I think this is one of the best interventions that one can say. That every month, Once you have registered and you have accessed the loan, you'll be getting your monthly installmental payment. Gives you a lot of confidence that you can also plan and listen. And I must say that a lot of intervention are also going through the NELFON. Let people also, I want also Nigerians to understand what NELFON stands for. NELFON is not only agency of government that government will be funding. There is a provision of the act that anybody, a philanthropist, a Nigerian, anybody that wants to improve Nigerian status as far as education is concerned, you can walk into NELFON headquarters and tell them that you are donating so millions of naira or even hundreds of thousands of naira so that so category of student will access that loan and use it. That.
Honorable Minister, it's just been 2 months since this scheme kicked off fully, and I must say that statistics is quite encouraging. But is NELFON and the federal government strategizing on how to further sensitize the public, enlighten the universities and potential students about the existence of this scheme? Because from the report we have, I see that documentation is a challenge for some students.
Yes, we have such issues, and we have addressing that even at the level of the Ministry of Education together with NELFON. We have agreed that if you look at the data, the spreadsheet, some of the states in the country are left behind. And already we have started stakeholders engagement. We have done in one of the states that was almost the least, KB State for instance. Very soon, just today, we have concluded discussion with the Chairman House Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund that NELFON will also move to Bauchi State. They will also move to Katsina State. And we're also approaching governments of other states that are left behind so that everybody will be carried along.
What about the South?
And who are the major people that are invited? Even the Southeast, we are moving. We are moving all over the country. So we are not restricting ourselves to this thing. But you see, when you look at statistics, you see this government believes in inclusivity. When you look at statistics as at last 4 weeks, there are some states that have 0.7% of access by students from those states. So definitely for you to carry everybody along. If you have somebody that have almost 30% access, then you have to concentrate on those 0.7% so that everybody can be carried along and nobody will be accused of regional interest or any other issues. It's a political era and it's democracy. Right. Everybody will have...
Honorable Minister, NELFON says...
say that definitely we are moving to all states. Okay. And the stakeholders that are going to involve there are the head of tertiary institution, traditional rulers, the politicians, and also the student groups, so that we can see this thing. And let me say, a lot of, from personal discussion, there are lots of fears expressed by students and accessing the loan, most especially those who have accessed the COVID-19 loan, that money is being deducted immediately, they have received money from any other sources. But even if you don't want to access the loan because you don't want to use your bank, you can access the institutional grant, so that at least your school fees, hostel accommodation, everything will be paid directly to university, and you have received
Honorable,
that will allow you to be comfortable in your position of knowledge.
Because of time, I'd like you to address this also. NELFON says any students not admitted through JAMB will not qualify for the fund. Is this a latest development, and why?
The reason why is that you have to have a reason why you are. For us in any tertiary institution, you must be admitted through JAMB. That is a criteria. So if you even for you to be mobilized to go for your NYSC, you must have JAMB number. Because the Act mandated JAMB to be responsible for securing and providing spaces for our institution. And we are working under the government that obeys the rule of law. So that is a criteria that must be fulfilled. You cannot tell me that you are in university studying for any particular institution and you didn't go there through the JAMB. Even if you have gone through other, what do we call, matriculation or any other distance, you must have your JAMB number. And then not only JAMB, you must also have your BVN, so that the money will be sure that it's going to you. So these are some of the criteria. And I don't think that is something to complain of, because if you are a genuine student, you have to add this. Otherwise, people who are not in the university or who are not in polytechnic or even colleges of education will have a means of faking documents to say that they are admitted. And they can access the loan without being in school. So these are protective measures being put in place to safeguard the Nigerians' money that will be utilized for the access.
Apart from students of public universities, there's call to also have students from private universities to benefit from this scheme. Is there a plan in place to bring them on board?
You see, really, there are a lot of issues. Mr. President is inclusive. But definitely we must make sure that we have strategized and strengthened the performance of that. And even that is to be done, there is need for the Act to be amended so as to further widen its scope. If you look at it initially, the scope of Act was to only cater for tuition fee. And because it is highly restrictive, Mr. President has to widen the scope to not only include all the public schools, but also to include skill as a major reason to access the loan.
All right, I want us to also talk about the decision to invalidate degree certificates obtained from some universities in Togo and Benin Republic from 2017 till date. This has left over 22,000 Nigerian graduates of the institutions confused and with their fate hanging in the balance. Why did government take such decision? I mean, why didn't government just sanction those who attended unaccredited institutions or got their certificate through dubious means?
And let me thank you for using a very selective word as so much like, which has gone to clarify many issues. Some universities. So it means it's not all universities in Togo or Benin Republic that are disqualified to use their certificate in Nigeria. All those institutions that have not received the recognition of those countries are the ones that we are working on that have been banned. In Benin Republic, there are 5 universities. In Togo, there are 3 universities. You understand? So for those who have gone to university that is not recognized by their country, it means definitely there is no way Nigeria will come graduate this thing. What is this? Why are we working on this? As we have health security, we have national security, we also need to have an education security. Because failure of that security in education can be able to be so detrimental to this country. Take for instance now, Mr. President is widening the scope and access to ICT technology in Nigeria so as everybody will be carried along. Take for example where you have somebody who has attended a mushroom class and come into the country with a degree. And all of a sudden he was recruited and posted to NIDA or any other ICT government-owned institution holding so many vital data. A simple tab on a keyboard is enough to wipe all the data that will have spent years and money to build. So it means we are losing our security. And then take even for example, I have worked hard for 4 years to get a certificate and degree, and then you have just gone through a business center and designed a certificate and cross over. In 2 or 3 months, you are coming back to country with a degree and going to serve, mobilize to serve, and then you come and compete with me. And by your virtue of being highly placed in terms of parent access or anything, you secured that space in my instance. What will happen? Everybody will lose focus in terms of getting education. Will say, oh, I would rather than wasting my 4 years and suffering, let me just cross and get the distance. And in the end, our leadership selection, leadership prioritization will suffer serious neglect. And nobody,
all right. So has the NYSC gotten? So has the NYSC gotten this memo? As the head of the Civil Service of the Federation gotten this memo and now acting on fishing out those who have earlier gained employment with these certificates or currently serving with these certificates?
Definitely after the fake meeting, immediately after 48 hours, the fake extract was circulated to all the all the necessary organs of government for implementation. And already we in the ministry, we have started implementing. We have done a total overhaul completely of Department of Education Support Services. We are bringing a new fresh decision, and some of them that are even incriminated were also handed over to security agencies. It's a fake decision and must be respected. Head of service is
Honorable
working.
Minister, above all,
so working.
Above all, what's the ministry doing to restore confidence in our local degrees, in our own degrees here in Nigeria?
What we are doing is to ensure that we are working to address the pillars of education so that confidence will be restored. Funding by Mr. President, he has promised us, and here we have seen it, it has improved, and it will be backed by release. And subsequently, as the security issues in the country is addressed, we'll have a better decent funding than what we have right now. We are also working in terms of having a strong curriculum, which I have earlier mentioned that we have already completed. We will present that to National Council on Education for ratification and adaptation. And those curriculum has addressed our need, and we want it to provide the Nigerians, educated Nigerians that we want for this motion. And in that, we try to emphasize more on technology and technology education and deployment in education. We are also focusing more on skills so that not only certificate, but skill component will be so that in the near future, you'll be awarded degree or HND or any certificate in Nigeria based on learning character and skills, not on learning and character alone, because those are what is besieged by national policy on education. We're also working...
Honorable Minister, because of time, quickly, in April, you revealed that Mr. President has approved the project of the education, which encapsulated the generation of overall data of all schools in Nigeria, right from kindergarten to our tertiary institutions. And that should enable the ministry to have the actual data and number of students, their performances, the number of schools, and their current status, so that the federal government can know where it needs to intervene. Where are we on that?
Yes, I mentioned earlier, even in your news segment, that we are working this very soon now. The enumerators will start, and then data will start being generated, so that we can see how we can. This is something that has been fast-tracked. We have received the approval of Mr. President to completely see how we can fast-track the dots and all its merits and gains, so that Nigerian can benefit. Nigerian will know that the hope of average Nigerian is reduced.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Minister of State for Education, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.